have a dirty job. And I know it because lots of people told me that. Very respected people, development experts, governance people. Even my husband tells me that I have a dirty job. And he knows better because he's in the construction business in Afghanistan, so I can tell you. I have a dirty job because I advise policymakers and program people on how they can best design and implement stabilization programs. Sounds dirty, right? Stabilization, you have wasted money, you have military relations. Yeah, not really good. But what is it really? It's just trying to see how actors can best use their resources so they actually contribute to building peace. They actually try to stop the conflict from spreading further in other areas of the country. It sounds much better, doesn't it? Building peace. Now I look good. Stabilization programs have had a really bad reputation in Afghanistan and elsewhere for very good reason. It's been lots of money wasted, hundreds of millions of dollars, I should say billions of dollars. Right now, as we speak, there are hundreds of millions of dollars on the table for stability programs. And for what? For what? They started, 7, 8 years ago? For nothing. The conflict is actually more intense than it used to be. So that's very interesting. We invest so much money and very little happen. Why? Because most of the people who could have contributed to actually bring their brains to that have run away. They've decided that it was too dirty, that all this money was taken away from their own budgets, which is development and governance, for example. And it's weird that we don't think more about it, because there's 24 countries in the world that are right now in serious conflicts. And yet, there is an incredible intellectual vacuum on these ideas. There are people talking about peace. You know, you watch CNN and Al Jazeera and you see people shaking hands. They've signed a peace agreement. Everybody is happy. It's very moving. But before that, what happens? What happens in the communities before they actually implement the peace agreement as well? What happens in the villages where people are frustrated, where people are scared, where people feel disrespected, where they actually decide to support insurgents? What happened there? What do we do for them? What do we do to make sure that a fertile ground for insurgency doesn't become more fertile, and we can actually somehow mitigate the impact of this insurgency? We do very little because there is too little talk. Some people, of course, have tried to think about it in their own sectors. What have they done? We have the security people who came and said, it's easy. You just have to put more army and more police. You have to stop the bad guys. You have to cut the financial support. That's it. Development people said, no. We have a better idea. You have to empower communities. And once communities are empowered and they have a better livelihood, everything will be fine. Okay? And then governance people say, you're not there. It's actually much more simple. You build the trust between the people and the government, and then it will be fine. Political people say, oh, no, you actually have first to do an election process, transparent and fair, this one we're expecting. And you have to do a peace process, peace talks, negotiations at the international level. And then you have the US aid contractors who say, I'm part of it, who say, well, it's even much easier than that. You actually just need to do quick impact projects. Yahoo, we found the way to spending money. All of this might be right at the end of the day. But no one connects the dots. Everyone actually thinks about its own little solution without trying to figure out how all of this can be put together. It's like a recipe. You need more than one ingredient, right, to make it good. You need to put all those different ingredients together to actually have a good recipe, and it takes time. So that's what I want to talk about here. Try to see how people can be more motivated to participate to this debate rather than run away from it. How can we make a better use of those hundreds of millions of dollars which are on the table right now? I've spent 7 or 8 years maybe working on that, and the more I do it, the more I gain humility, thinking on how much more brains you need to talk about it. So I'll review some of the cliches, try to destroy some of them. Let me start with the first one. Stabilization does not work. Okay, it's kind of true, actually. It's kind of true, especially if you do it the way it's done so far. So you give grants to corrupt elected bodies at the local level, or you do isolated quick impact projects, or even better, you distribute chairs, tables, and beautiful sofas that you bought from Dubai to the district governor so he improves governance. And I'm not joking, some people do that. Doesn't work, right? But when the education system doesn't work, what do? Do we discard education as a whole and say it's not good, let's not have education? No, we actually try to fix it. And here, on stabilization, people are not really trying to fix it. There's very little lessons learned about this. There's very little done to think how we can do that better. Very little of us putting ourselves into questions, trying to look at how much money we have wasted. So the big question is, why do we give up? The second cliché. Stabilization can be done really quickly. You need to invest for a year, and then you have the development and governance people who come over and take over. They've been saying that for 8 years now. And then no, it needs a lot of time. It's a very slow process because you need all these ingredients. You need all this cooking to happen. It takes time. What are those ingredients? And to present that to you, I will just go through a story. It's a stabilization initiative, so it takes a long time, but I'll do the short story, the TED version of it. Some years ago, at the very beginning of the insurgency, I was living in Loya Paktya in the southeast of Afghanistan, where I was working for very inspiring people in Unama at this time. There was. And there, we worked with the government and the Zadvan tribe, including in the district where Haqqani is from. What was the problem there? The problem, there are so many problems, you don't even know where to start with. A tribal structure that had been weakened by years of war and displacement, a leader within the tribe who is very well known for his terrorist acts, and poverty and frustration and military operation that make more frustration, and a bad district governor in one of the districts, and I can go on and on. Just so many problems and so many different kind of problems. The whole process is very interesting. The outcome was not that good because we had misunderstood how strong the support was from outside of the country at the very beginning. But the process is very interesting, and to see how people can change and engage is very interesting. We started there are 3 ingredients that you absolutely need to have. One is politics. Second one is governance. And third one is development. Politics first. There are other ingredients, but those are the ones that you absolutely need. And of course, I won't talk about military and stuff like this because that's not my field. But you need the 3 ones as a basics. Politics, what is that? Other than a word that scares everybody. Is the fact that there are people, any people, when they lose power, when they are scared to lose power, when they feel disrespected or humiliated by the people who have power, they are very likely to turn violent. And that's not just Afghans, that's anywhere in the world. I'm French, I can tell you about my entire history, I can prove it very easily. People don't like losing power. And so what do? You look at rebalancing power. You look at reassuring people. You look at negotiating. You look at listening, always listening. Building trust. This takes time. This takes lots of time. And this is what we did at that time. It took us a month just to have a cup of tea presented to us. Before that, there was not even the hospitality offered to us. A month. And then we moved forward to a point that the relation was so strong that I could travel in villages where nobody can set a foot because it's too dangerous. It's about reshaping the tribal shura if one clan has taken over. It's about asking the government to take political steps to respond to the grievances of the people. It's a deal where you have one political step at a time from both sides, government, tribe. Everyone has to do something. That takes time. I'm going back to that point, that takes time. Then you have the second ingredient, which is governance. Governance, it's not about big reform of the government of Afghanistan. We're working on it anyway. But if you want to look at the local level, if you want to address the local issues, you have to look at very simple solutions at the local level. And what people expect is just that the local government takes logical decisions that make sense. I want to show you a map so you actually see. This is in Imam Sahib, where I work now, in Kunduz, northeast of Afghanistan, next to the Tajik border. All those dots are villages. There are over 200 villages in Imam Sahib, very populated area. There's 179 police officers, policemen there. Those are the blue dots. 172 are in less than 7 kilometers perimeter from the district center. What about those other villages? What about those people where there's a high criminality? How can they have the basic service delivered to them, which is security? How can they complain if someone breaks into their house? It's just absolutely visible here. That doesn't make sense to any citizens. Might make sense for the decision makers. They might have good reason for that. No, they have. But how is this acceptable to a district where the insurgency is not even that strong anyway? All right. So we have governance, which also takes time because you have to address it, finding the right solution to every single main problem that brings frustration to the people. That could be just building the capacity of a school management committee so they can put pressure on the teachers to be on time and to actually be present in the school. There are so many examples that could be given. Unfortunately, I do not have the time here. The third point is development. The problem is that what we've done with development right now, we've used it as an incentive as a way to buy people's loyalty. And it's been 10 years that we see that you don't buy people's loyalty. It doesn't work. I mean, if we haven't figured that out yet, it's a pretty big problem. There are so many places, and you look at Kunduz, for example, there are so many places where there has been development. So why do you have an insurgency? What is important is to use development in the right way to just support the dialogue. What is important is to include people in the processes so they really feel something is happening. In the Zadran area, we only provided a couple of projects there. And it's funny, they complain about lots of things, but not about the fact that there were so few projects coming, because they were involved in everything. They had to negotiate for hours or days, months, about the color of the painting of the school. I can tell you that really kept them busy for some times. But they felt involved. They felt they had the power over that. When I talk about process, I again talk about spending time, about taking the time to involve people, taking the time to listen to people. Third cliché. Stabilization costs lots of money. It's very expensive. It's not because we cannot buy people's loyalty, so we don't have to spend that money. How great is that? What you need is to have actually people who are dedicated and who are ready to listen. You have to pay them, obviously. And also you need a really high tea budget. It's always important. But there's not a need for so much money to be spent. And all the craziness about burning rate, about spending as much as possible to show results, that's unfortunately not the right way to address things. The fourth cliché is that, well, it's a lot about politics, and I said it. Politics is dirty. So development people or governance people, they say, we don't want to have anything to do with that. No politics. Well, guess what? Politics is everywhere. We can't do without it. It's a package. You have to take it all. You deal with it. You can't just separate development from politics. Every time you give a grant to an elected body, you actually influence politics. You support power brokers who maybe you didn't have intention to support, and this to the detriment of other people who have less power. So understanding politics is absolutely key when you want to do development or governance, and especially when you want to look at stabilization. And there's too little of that. So when you look at all of this, it's not really brain surgery. There's a lot of very logical things that I've just said, things that maybe all of you know already. But it's a question of perseverance. It's a question of how much efforts you put into it and how much ready you are to keep looking at how to improve it. The problem is that the international community has kept looking at its watch saying, we're late, this is the last year. Absolutely, we have to fix it now, because if we don't fix it now, it was going to be too late. I've heard that for so many years now. So if they had taken the decision from the very beginning to have a long-term vision, we would not be where we are now. The only ones who haven't felt pressure by time are the insurgents. That paid off for them. Let's take time. Let's admit that things take time. And then we need as well to better influence people rather than running away from our responsibilities to influence. We can say stabilization is not good, we should not have those big programs, it's not useful. But they are there. So we need more brains to contribute to the debates. We need more brains to share their experiences of what's happening in the field and to see how we can do it better. We need more brain to actually do good stabilization programs. And I have hope that it's possible. I have hope because I've seen how communities can be changed. I have seen how the Zadran people were coming 100 kilometers to meet us, sit with us, and just share what they had in mind when they had never set a foot in Gardes or in Rose before, staying in their mountains. So I really have hope that it is possible to change things in communities. And of course, we need more efforts at for the big picture as well, but I think it's possible to start working with the people. Thank you very much.